Hey everyone, welcome to the Pole Strong podcast with me, your host, Becky Dunn. Today I speak to Dr Emily Rausch. Emily is a certified chiropractic sports physician who specialises in the assessment and treatment of pole dancers. She's based in the USA and offers online programs where she works with pole dancers all around the world. I hope you enjoy this just as much as I did. Emily, thank you for joining me.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
Woo! So whereabouts are you in the USA? Whereabouts?
So I live in the state of Idaho, which if you don't know the United States, if you can like picture it in your head, it's kind of like a rectangle. And then if you divide it into like 4 quadrants, I'm in like the top right left quadrant.
Wow.
Of it. Like Washington is closest, like Seattle area is like hour flight for me. So kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Sometimes I can't even like fathom how big US is. Like it's not until you like start to like deep dive on the states and you're like, oh my god, there is so many and they are so big.
Yes. I don't remember who I was talking to about this the other day that like I was actually listening to a TikTok or watching a TikTok and they're like, oh, I need to drive like halfway across the country. And they were like somewhere in like Europe and they're like, oh, it's like a 2-hour drive. 2 hours doesn't get me out of the state. Like, no, like I'm still in the state that I live in for like, if you wanted to drive from like the top to the bottom of it, because the state that I live in is like really long. It would be like probably like a 10-hour drive at least.
What? It would take me 10 hours to drive to Scotland, which is, I'm in the very bottom of the UK. I'm at the south. So it would probably, maybe a little bit longer, maybe not. But yeah, 10 hours, it would take me to get to like Scotland.
Yeah, no, we're just chilling in one state. Yeah.
Wow.
The US is huge. It's unnecessarily large, to be honest, but we're here.
Unnecessary. So in your state then, or where you are in particular, is pole a big thing? Is there many classes? Is there many studios? Not many classes. Is there many studios?
In the state, I'm not sure. In the city that I live in, yes, there's how many pole studios? 1, 2, 3 pole studios. The city that I live in is like a little less than 1 million people. There's 3 pole studios. There's a few other aerial studios as well. I think there's 5 studios total, which is quite a bit for the area, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been polling for? And was that your first, before we talk, I want to dig deep into what you do, because I think it's really fascinating and the crossover is amazing. But before we go into that, how long have you been polling for?
March was 5.5 years.
Oh wow, so a little while.
Yeah. So I don't know however many months from March to July. So yeah, a little over 5.5 years. I actually started my aerial journey with hammock. Well, I took like a taster class and it was like one day was on silks, one day was on lyra, trapeze, hammock. And lyra and trapeze, I don't know how people do that. Like the pain, which I haven't tried it since I've been doing pole, and I should like circle back around and see if it's less painful. But when I was like very like virgin back of my knees, I was like, how do people do this? Dislike. And then aerial silks still are so hard. Every once in a while I'll pop into like a beginner aerial silks class. And once again, I'm like, how do you all have the shoulder stability to do this on a regular basis? Like what is going on? But hammock was really fun. And so I did hammock for like 3 years and kept getting fabric burn from the drops that we were doing. And I was like, I don't like this, but I still want to be in the like kind of aerial off the ground, like non-traditional movement. And yeah, I started pole and I was a little cocky when I started, not gonna lie. I was like, oh, I've been doing hammock for a long time. Like this is going to be super easy. Like I'll just like breeze into it. No. Oh my God, no.
Work, isn't it?
It's hard. Yeah. It's like different. Like every apparatus has like some similarities, but there's different like positions, and strength is position specific. And if you're not used to being strong in that like very specific position, especially for pole. So yeah, I don't like being bad at things either. And so I was like, I'm going to figure this out. And 5.5+ years later, here we are.
Amazing.
Still trying to not be bad at it.
Well, I think that always like still continues throughout. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to do this today. And then you realize how terrible you are. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. But like, and we try and try.
This is one for another day.
Yeah.
Which is what stick to what we're good at.
For sure, which is like the fun part about pole, because you're like, I don't know if you're having a weird day where you're like, I can't do whatever trick for whatever reason, like you could just go do something else and like still enjoy it.
Yeah, and also, like I've said this before, it's not up to you how you train when you train pole. It's your body dictates what you're going to do. So you can have the best will in the world to train something in particular, but if your body isn't feeling it, sometimes you have to do something else, because you're like, no, my shoulders aren't taking that, or my flexibility is not, I'm not feeling very flexible today, for example. But let's start on like your background in particular then. I'm sorry if you can hear that little jingle. Your background in particular. So yeah, your career, what you do for a living, like where did that all start? Tell everybody what you do.
Like my educational background?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have way too many degrees. Well, I mostly like way too many student loans, because like education is really expensive in the United States. So I have a bachelor's degree in exercise and sports science. Yeah, exactly. Education. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just like, easily like $250,000 in student loans. Like we're just chilling. It's fine. So yeah, my first bachelor's degree I got right out of college, or right out of high school, is in exercise and sports science. And then I took like 7 years off and worked like a kind of a weird wide variety of jobs. Of like, I was in retail for a while, and I worked in banking, and my entire like life I was like really active, involved in sports, and I wanted to do something more in that realm. But this life was like kind of weird when I graduated from college. So I was like, I'm just gonna like, keep on chugging along until it like makes sense for me to like shift more into the movement world again, and decided that I wanted to go back to school to become a chiropractor. And more specifically, I wanted to become a sports medicine chiropractor. So if you don't know, at least in the States, there's a wide variety of different types of chiropractors that can exist. You can choose to specialize, or you can not. And most of us, like most chiropractors, don't. They just are like a generic, like everyday chiropractor. But I don't want to say like, I'm not a huge fan of like little kids, and I'm not a huge fan of like working with old people. I want to work with people that want to be active. And so the sports medicine realm like made more sense to me. So while I was working on my doctorate, I also decided to get a master's degree, which was a lot. Like, why not just do both? So I have
let's do it all.
let's just do all the things. So yeah, I got another bachelor's degree in human biology, a master's degree in sports medicine, and then my doctorate in chiropractic. And then in the States, at least, if you want to work with like higher level athletes, there's like testing that you can take after you have your master's degree and your doctorate. So there's 2 levels. I took the first level certification. So I'm a certified chiropractic sports physician, which allows me, if I wanted to work with like Team USA athletes, but I can't work with Olympic athletes yet. That's like the next level, is to like go to the Olympic Training Center and work with athletes there, which I missed applying for the round of like the schooling by like 10 days. They started on the 1st of July. And I was like, no.
This year.
Yeah. I was like kind of going back and forth, and I was like, I'll look to see like when the next like cohort starts, because it gets pretty in depth. You do like a lot of like online classes, and then I would have to fly to Portland like I think it's like once a month for like several years to do like hands-on training with stuff. And it started on the 1st, and I looked at it on like the 10th, and I was like, dang it, like I missed it by like 10 days. So which is it's fine. There's the universe telling me like not the right time yet, but
I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer. It just worked for whatever reason. It's just something else will come your way, and it will all make sense.
So that'll be I wasn't gonna do it for a while, but more and more I'm like, it would be nice to like have that like next level of certification. So the next round that they do it, I will be working on my diplomate in sports medicine, which will allow me, if I want to like go work at our like Olympic training centers here in the States.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So then when did that coincide with pole, and when did you start to become more specialist in that field?
Yeah, great question. So when, like I said, I started pole dancing when I was in chiropractic school, and I didn't realize how like hypermobile my own individual shoulders are. So I had some shoulder stuff come up, especially as I advanced through pole, and I advanced pretty quickly. So there's like a few things, if I could go back in time and like restart my pole journey, that I would do differently, and like slowing down and cross training more would be like the two that I would like recommend, which is why I like preach it so much on my Instagram page, where I'm like, don't be me, like, please, like, go back.
And I am so for this, right? Because I actually started this podcast. One of the reasons why I really, really wanted to bring exposure to S&C, just looking after your body in general, good nutrition. And it's not to say that it hasn't brought that to life, but some people that I speak to, or have spoken to, don't really cross train, don't really, aren't really big on nutrition, which is totally fine, by the way. But for me, that is everything. Whenever I even have a client, I have people message me like, I'm interested in working with you. Like, can you help me achieve my goals? And my first question back is always, will you cross train? Like, is that a thing for you? Like, cross training is so big, and I'm so glad you're big on it. And this was like one thing I was like, I need to get her on.
Yeah,
I need to get her on. So you realized that you needed to you cross train.
Yeah. So how I got into primarily treating pole dancers is I like hurt my shoulder. I was doing like what the swing away on the pole, I can't think of what the word is, where you grab it and you like swing your whole body back and let go. We were supposed to go into a kip, and I like didn't let go because I was scared to drop, and I like felt my shoulder like kind of like little apart, which I was in chiropractic school, so I was like, I know what happened, like let's go get it rehabbed at our like student clinic. And everyone was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean this is what you did to your shoulder? Like, why were you swinging? What was happening? And I was like, yeah, I want to be able to like, yeah, exactly. I was like, I want to be able to like swing my entire body weight away from the pole and then like let go and land on my knees and like not get hurt. So that was kind of like the first part of like, there's like kind of a disconnect between like providers and understanding what pole dancers need for their body. And it like kind of implanted the seed where I was like, there's a need for this. Like if I'm having these struggles, I can't be the only one. So like, what if I chose in the like wide realm of like sports medicine world, when you're going through like any sort of like business thing, it's like, you have to find a niche, right? Like, or a niche, however you say that word.
Yeah. No, it's right. Yeah.
And so that was like like kind of the seed plant of me being like, everyone keeps telling me that I need to have a niche in the sports medicine world, and like, why not have it be pole dancers? And from there, I like started looking to be like, are there like continuing education courses that I can take that would like help me be better prepared to like help this niche in the world? And I connected with Emily Sherb. She's the circus doc on Instagram.
Yes.
And yeah, she wrote the book Applied Anatomy of Aerial Arts, and she has some courses that she will pre-COVID would go around and teach, and one of them was in Portland, which is where I was going to school. So went to that, and I was like, oh, there's like a whole nother like realm to the sports medicine world, like dance medicine, like artistic sports medicine, that I didn't honestly realize existed. I don't know why, but it took me like attending this course, and I was like, oh my God, like I could do this. Like I could hang out with my people like all day.
Yeah.
And like, that would be like super great. And then when I graduated, that was like my entire plan. I was like, I'm going to specialize in like circus and aerial people. I do pole specifically, but like have some background in like the other apparatuses. And the clinic that I worked at first was like not on board. They're like, nope, we don't want that to be your niche. We don't want like, I'm 99% sure the doctor said those type of people in my clinic. And I was like, this is not going to be a good fit for me. Then COVID happened like 6 weeks after I started practicing. So I was home alone, like a lot of people were. Everything was shut down, like including like my clinic that I was working at. I was only working like 12 hours a week. So I just started posting on Instagram. I started posting like stuff that I knew about like the body and about pole and how the two intertwined. And then it's kind of a long story, but long story short, I ended up moving in the middle of a pandemic to a place where I knew like one person when we moved, and decided that like I was going to continue posting. I hired a business coach and like developed like an online portion of my business. And now I work with people all over the world to
so
not
good,
have their
isn't it?
bodies hurt from pole. Yeah, it's super fun.
So do you mainly look after, like, are you really like people that are injured, or because I've seen you do a couple of different programs, so what do you sort of work on? Who do you work, who's your biggest clientele, would you say? Or people looking to get stronger, or like what do you think is your biggest?
Yeah, so I go back and forth because I can do more like sports performance, like, and that's where I prefer to be, because like people get hurt. I understand people get hurt, but it's very heavy, like dealing with people that are struggling with an injury. There's a lot of emotions that come up, and like not being able to like physically touch a person and, you know, and be like, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it through this. Like all of my stuff is virtual. So it's like, can I hug you through the screen when you're like having like a full on breakdown on Zoom? Which I'm more than happy to like hold space for people in that capacity, but like it's hard for everyone. And there's some stuff where I'm like, you know, if I could touch you, like we probably could resolve this a lot quicker. Yeah. But so I lost my train of thought, but yeah, so I can do both, like injury and sports performance. Where since I've been doing this for like almost 2 years now, where I've realized that there's more of a need is more on the like injury side, because there's lots of people and lots of programs that exist in the world where it's like, I want to be able to do my shoulder mount. Okay, here's a course. Or I want to be able to do whatever, like here's an 8-week program or whatever. A lot of those exist, but there's not a lot of like, my shoulder hurts when I'm trying to do a twisted grip. Like, how do I have it not hurt? So yeah, it's been like a little bit of trial and error of me trying to figure out like where in this like pole bubble can I like serve the most people and have the most impact. And more it's seeming like people that are injured is where more of a need is. So that tends to be where I go. But as soon as we can get out of pain, we're like kicked into sports performance, where I'm like, you're not hurt anymore. Like, yes, we're going to get you like as strong as possible.
Oh, yes.
And then the other kind of flip side, like I don't love the idea of like only making money off of people that are injured. That doesn't like make me feel good. So very much want to put out to the world, like, you can't completely prevent injuries. That's not possible, but there's a lot of steps that you can take to reduce your risk of injury. And so how do you do that? And that's where like the cross training comes in. So I'm getting ready to relaunch a like 8-week coaching program where it's like, you want to start cross training, but you have no idea like how to start. And you don't want to just go to the gym and look a fool. You don't know, like people keep telling me I should cross train, but like, how do I actually do it? So it's going to be like a cross training 101 program for pole dancers.
Nice. Yeah. So what is your like go-to piece of equipment? Like where do you get people to, what's your go-to for cross training? Do you have one?
Honestly, if people are like, I want to buy one piece of equipment to be able to cross train, I'm going to pick a kettlebell.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's single-handedly, like, I can't tell you how transferable a kettlebell is to pole. You know this, I know you know this, but to increase your strength and stability through your forearms and through your wrists and through your shoulders and through everything else, there's nothing else that can do that. Like, and the way you have to distribute the weight, all of it is so transferable to pole.
And like, well, because I do have some people that have dumbbells, and like, if you're like, oh, I have a dumbbell, I don't have a kettlebell, there's a lot that you could do with the dumbbell. But
it does work.
Kettlebell,
it does work.
Yeah, with the like handle, and you can like put it in different positions. You can hold it by the like bell part, or you can hold it by like either handle or like in the middle of it. It's like the kind of an all-around piece of equipment. I love it.
Like, I don't think there's anything better personally. Like, I love it. I'm a big advocate of kettlebells. I have been for the past 3 years in particular. In lockdown is why I trained 3 times a week. I started doing online classes. They went really well. It kickstarted my kettlebell program. And I my strength went through the roof. Like, when I went back to pole, I was like, oh shit, like I am way stronger than what I was. And even with injuries, like I can do twisted grip, no problem. Like, I have a lot of shoulder stability through, like stuff like bottoms up. you know, like all of this sort of stuff, windmills, build great halos, great stability exercises that are so transferable. And I've just noticed that I've been injured less. If I pick up injuries now, it is through purely overtraining of me being like, again and again, doing something again and again and again, and then putting stress through it, or I should have stopped and I didn't, for example. Like it's not through having lack of strength or stability for a particular muscle.
Definitely. Which, like, if we're gonna go broader picture, like just wait, like load yourself.
Yeah, just
yes.
This is it. Yeah. And free weight, by the way. Free weight, really. Like resistance machines can still do the job, by the way, but I feel like resistance machines are good if you're in a position where like they're quite good for adding in volume to your plan, and they're quite good like if you've already built your muscle and your stability through the shoulders, or not just any muscle, by the way, but I'm just using that as an example. But free weight is very, very good for building.
Completely agree. I have like levels of thought with it, where I'm like, if you're going to use a machine and that's going to get you cross training, like go for it. Like I would rather have you start with the machines, and like getting going, and then like once I feel like a lot of times it's like people don't feel super confident with free weights, but once they're like, oh, I've used the machines, I like feel okay being in this space, I like understand a little bit more, let me like eke into the like free weight section of the gym and just like start to play. And then once like build their confidence up, then it's like, oh, like sky's the limit. And like, you can get like really, really strong with free weights, which is great.
Well, I think why I love kettlebells so much too is because you can and dumbbells, you can literally grab a couple, and this is why I think it's so good if you're in the gym, because you can just go find a corner in the gym and plonk yourself there and follow your program, and and you can be in and out within 30 minutes tops. If you do it correctly, you can blitz in and out pretty quickly.
Agreed. And that's when people want to have like a home gym. That's my recommendations. I'm like, go to wherever you would buy weights and like buy a heavier weight for like lower body stuff, and buy a lighter weight for your upper body stuff. And I'm not going to tell you which weights, because like light and heavy is very like subjective to people, but I'm like, you too. And then you can have it in your house, and like, there's so much stuff you can do. You don't have to go to the gym to be able to do things. Go buy 2 weights, and then obviously have a program to follow.
Even working out in the garden, like with a kettlebell, like you could take it anywhere, the park, anywhere. But you are right, like, because that's probably the question I do get asked the most is what kettlebell weight should I start out with? It's impossible for me to tell you. It's really difficult. Like I could tell you I think like for an absolute, it's really hard because it all depends on you and what you can lift. But one thing that is for sure is you move up weight rapidly quick when you train consistently with weight, especially with kettlebells. You progress really, really quick. So like you say, having a couple is so beneficial, because by week 2, week 3, you're already finding that everything's got a little bit easier.
Yep. And that's what I was gonna say is like what's heavy like day to day matters too, right? So if you can't afford to have like a range of things, like because there's some days where I'll be like, I'm gonna do like goblet squats for an example, and I'll pick up my like normal leg one, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is like way too heavy for today. So having the ability to like go down, or then the days where you're like super recovered and I'm like, man, I need to go buy a heavier kettlebell because the like heaviest one I have is too light for today. So having a range, oh my god, it's amazing.
Well, this is it too, because like I had this conversation a lot, like especially with KB training too, like you move through range of weight it depends very much on the move that you're doing. Like you could shoulder press something if you have a good strong core and you've got a lot of stability, you could maybe up your weight with shoulder press, turn the kettlebell upside down and do a bottoms up press. You're reducing your weight by half. Like it, and same with like windmills and stuff like that. You might have to drop down quite significantly, but you can press or you can push, I don't know, like a 12, but come into that stability range of motion and you're like, I can't even lift a 4. And it really does test your ability and your range. And I think that's why it's so cool too, and to have a good range. But I love that you love that style of training too.
Yes. Yeah. It's super fun. And like, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, cross training can be really boring. And like, yes, it can be, but it also can be like really, I think like really fun to be like, oh, like, look how much I can hold like in a bottoms up press. Like, look at my forearm, like stabilizing, look at my shoulder stabilizing. And like, maybe it's just because I've had like injuries in the past where the thought of like ever being able to like move my shoulder without pain for a while was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. And like, now I'm like, look at me, like I can do it. But I don't know. I wish more people enjoyed cross training, or even if they didn't enjoy it, they would just like do it, because it pays off, like both reducing risk of injury and then like being able to do cool shit.
All of it, like, but I think you have to change your mindset. People think cross training is boring because they think they're going into the gym, and going into the gym has that real like, oh, I don't want to go into the gym. You have to view it that you're going to get better at the thing that you love to do. So if you're going in and you're going to go do a lat pull down, for example, you're going to go work machines, that's fine, you're going to go do a lat pull down. You're working I used this example before, this is a terrible example, but you're going to work on your pull so that you can get your handspring. So that because you've identified that this top hand doesn't pull enough, for example. So you need to view it that you're going to get better for the thing that you love to do.
Yes.
And like you say, I think as well, until you've been injured, like, oh, there's no, that feeling of injury sucks.
It does. And that's where honestly, I spend way too much time thinking about this, because I'm like, people have resistance to cross training. Like, okay, I struggle to understand that, but I can acknowledge that that's a thing for people. And then they get injured, and like, usually the argument is like, well, I haven't been injured before. Enough people get injured. The injury rates in pole dancers is like astronomical, and it should not be as high as it is. And then to recover from that injury, you're going to have to do like rehab exercises, which if it's a smart like rehab program, we're going to get into strength and conditioning at some point so that we can get you above the like line that you were when you got injured, so your like capacity is going to be higher. And then when they are out of pain and starting to get stronger, and things that were a struggle before they were injured now are super easy, they're like, oh my god, like I could have been doing this entire time, like my progress could have been like so much faster. And I'm like, yes. Like, yes. And I wish it didn't take you like getting hurt for that to like click. Yeah,
for sure.
So how do I, well, not even just me, just like the pole community in general, like how do we get that click to happen without people having to get injured?
I know. And I love it when I work with my clients and they do my plan, any, even if you must get it yourself too. And I get texts like, oh my god, I got my extended butterfly. And it's like, yeah, no shit, because you've improved your push and pull.
Yes. Yeah.
like this is going to happen. Like, welcome to the show, because it's only going to get better from here, and you're gonna progress real quick. And it, like you say, it's all for that. It's it's when you start to see the benefits and you're like, oh, okay, this is like, all of a sudden things that were really difficult start to become easier, and you're like, oh, okay, this is because of this. So, and it makes cross training more exciting. So, like you said, it definitely needs to be that click, but there's definitely more people talking about strength and conditioning. And I think there's definitely more physios and doctors and personal trainers that are cross training over and having their niche as pole. But yeah, I definitely think there needs to be more exposure to it. I mean, I don't want to touch on this too much, because again, I don't want this to be any negativity, but I'm really shocked at the backlash that you have had on your posts, and people, the response that you have had, because you said it on your story and I loved it, because it's proven science. I like, it's just 101. Like, I'm really like, I'm like, sorry if you don't want to hear it, but it is. And when you I'm gonna be careful how I say this, when you learn about it, you understand that's just the basics. Like that's science. I'm sorry, my kitten's on my headphones.
Oh
no. That's science. So what you're saying, we're not just saying this as we like to cross train, like, come on guys, everybody do this. Like, it is proven science.
Yeah. And so if people don't follow me, principles, sports medicine principles, and take what is very, very well established science in just like the movement world being applied to other sports and like just apply it to pole. So it's like cross training is like one of the best ways to reduce your risk of injury and improve your ability to do the sport that you want to do. And like, you cannot consider pole a sport. That's fine. I do. And that's not like excluding strippers too. It's a very athletic way of moving. Yes.
No, I totally agree, because I class it as pole fitness. So I actually get quite a lot of people ask me a lot, like, well, what's the difference? Why are you calling it pole fitness? Like, what is pole fitness? I'm like, well, it's exactly the same. Just my main focus is on on that fitness aspect. My style is very dynamic. I'm a personal trainer. I enjoy strength and conditioning. I like to see the sport aspect of pole.
Yeah. And I work with strippers like quite a bit. And it's for me, it's like an interesting balance of trying to talk about pole as like a broader thing, but I don't strip. And so I feel like me really talking to strippers, not being a stripper, can come across as like disingenuous, but like I lump everyone in. I have multiple stripper clients where I'm like, hey, you want to be able to do cooler stuff on the stage? Like, let's go. You want to not have your body feel like death after your shift? Like, let's go. How are you going to get better and improve from that? Is like doing stuff outside of the club, because that's just how things work. But yeah, anyway, so I'm taking like well-established like science principles and just applying it to pole. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything like controversial. A lot of times it's like not even really my opinion. It's just like, this is science, and I'm just going to like 100%. Tweak it and apply it to pole. And people have very big feelings about it, which it's honestly, it's hard like for me, because like I create everything that I put on my Instagram page myself, and I'm like, I don't understand how this is an argument. Like, how are we here? But
how are we here?
I have to keep going back to like at one point I didn't know any of the things that I knew, right? Like, I had to go to school for 8 years to learn all of the things that I know. And if I hadn't done that, I would be probably confused and be like, I don't understand, like my instructor is telling me this, or I've only like read other things online and you're telling me the exact opposite. So I can like understand people being confused. And sometimes with confusion, big feelings happen. And so we'll keep working through it. I'm just going to keep saying the same thing like over and over again, and hopefully eventually
you can only stay true to you, and that's a really big thing. If you like you say if you disagree, you can unfollow, but this is I stand very strong by this. And also I loved your post that I think hits the nail on the head of pole dancers are athletes, and we are athletes, especially if you do this professionally and you do this full time, or if you train 3-4 times a week, you're in athletic territory. And you take anybody training for the Olympics. I'm going to take gymnasts as one, by the way. I did some studies on how when the Olympic gymnasts get ready for when they do their pre-season camp. I did one bit in particular. I did one little deep dive on it, by the way, and where I'm going to go with this. Like, one part of their S&C training, one move in particular that is part of that is kettlebell swings, because of how much it strengthens your posterior chain. I'm going to go really broad here. Gymnastics, tennis players, swimmers, anyone in sort of like mixed martial arts, boxing, UFC, anything like that, they all go through pre-season training camps, and they train all year long anyway. They don't just train their sport. They don't. There are specific strength and conditioning programs that they are put through by their coaches that enhance their output. Yeah, and this is exactly what we're saying.
And even if you wanted to go into more like gymnastics, for like pole crossover, gymnastics is one that I default to. And then people were like, well, there's the dance aspect to it as well, right? Like, there's the like dynamic, tricky part, but then there's also more of the dance part. Ballet dancers cross train, like professional ballet dancers cross train, and it's strength and conditioning, because they need the endurance, they need the strength to put themselves in those positions to be able to jump higher. They need more like leg power, so they go through like strength and conditioning programs in like a periodized way, right? Like there's times where they're focusing more on dance and there's times where they're focusing more on their like rehab strength and conditioning cross-training programs.
But they're never just, so like you take, I don't know, let's take a swimmer, for example, and they're getting ready to compete. A swimmer will never just do swimming. You know, and
there might be like weeks, like a week where they're of course.
Of course. But over there, like let's say they've got 12 weeks, their 12-week training camp, for example, that whole 12 weeks is not just swimming.
Oh, absolutely not.
And this is where I'm trying to go with this. Like they're athletes have like 12-week training camps, but they train obviously throughout the year. But when they're getting ready for stuff, they have their training camps that involves cross training, and most athletes will cross train in some capacity. And this is where I think we're going back to your post saying like pole dancers are athletes and therefore athletes should cross train. It all links. Like, come on, people, wake up and smell the coffee.
It does all link. And I find it really fascinating because like flexibility training is cross training, right? Like, and so broadly speaking, I haven't got any pushback when I talk more about like flexibility training and ways to like improve your flexibility. Flexibility is cross training. Like you're not on your apparatus. You are doing something off the pole to improve your ability to do things on the pole, which is like, you're like, okay, you can grasp that part of it, but another very important part of pole dancing, especially, is being able to be strong in those very flexible positions.
Yeah.
Like having the strength to put yourself into those positions instead of just passively hanging out on your joints. And the best way to improve that is through weightlifting of some capacity.
100%. It's the same with people that have like really naturally bendy backs. I'm going to use back as an example because I feel like it's more common than not. But that doesn't mean they've got the strength to be able to put themselves. I had a client once that had the most ridiculously bendy back. We could put her into whatever position that she went into, but holding those positions or trying to get into them by herself would be difficult because there's no strength there.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you're really flexible, like you still need to build that baseline strength too.
Yeah. So any position that you could passively get into, you should have the strength to actively get into that position. And most people don't. Most of us have more like passive flexibility than active flexibility, but having a really big gap between the two, like literally just sets yourself up for the risk of injury rate to like skyrocket. So only working on your flexibility and not working on the strength to like be able to support yourself in that position it might not hurt you right now, but like with repetition and then time, like things are not going to feel good. So being proactive as opposed to reactive is better.
Yeah, but you know what's really big as well is flexibility coaches. It's the same as S&C coaches. Like what you're saying is completely right. Like you are right. You don't get any pushback. Like flexibility is cross training, but also like I know a lot of polers that do bouldering and climbing. I don't know if that's a big thing in America. It's quite big here in the UK. They like that's still a form of cross training. Like anything that is not your usual movement. It doesn't have to be weight training. Weight training is going to help, but like it could be something else, and that's still cross training.
Yes, and that's where maybe I probably should be more clear. So I think every single human that exists on the planet should be like using resistance training as part of their programming. Like the injury rates that happen in older adults because they're not as strong as they need to be and their bones are not as strong because they haven't
bone density, right? Like it just starts to break down as you get older, and like that's what's not spoken about enough either. Like when you're not just improving your muscularity, you're improving your bone density.
Yes. Yeah. And so like not having some like, especially like as your bones are developing, so at like a youth, and then consistently like maintaining that bone density as you age. Like the leading cause of death in old people is from falling, and you'll fracture your hip and you don't recover from that fall. And so working on your ability to like stay balanced, which is like a really great part of like strength and conditioning, and then keeping your bones like dense so that if you do fall, they're not fracturing. The only way to do that is to add resistance. And so I want to be like Nike, just do it. But like, I feel like it's like find a way that like that you will, right? There's so many different like apparatuses that you could use. You could use machines, you could use bands, you could use kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells. Like there's a wide variety of different weightlifting things that you could use. Yeah, equipment. That's the word I was looking for. And then there's different programming. Like you don't have to like one person's program. Find someone's that you like, that you'll be consistent with, and literally just do it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. There's like nothing more to say. Like that's yes, absolutely. Yes. So I've seen that you've got your own gym at home now.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. So I have an in-person office. I don't see people in person very often. Not that I don't want to, but just like people here, like don't want to work. I just say they don't want to work with me. I don't know. I work with people like in Europe, and I can't get people that live down the street to schedule with me. It's fine. But it's attached to a really giant, kind of cross training or kind of CrossFit-esque gym. But I don't particularly like being around people when I'm struggling, and so I just choose to work out in my basement. So
okay, that's cool. So but it's cool because now you've got a little hub for all your content.
Yep. Yeah, so some of the videos that I'll post, if you see like a white like brick wall, that's like the days that I'm in my office, and then the rest of them are just like at home in my basement with my squat rack that is too big for the space, but it works really well.
You've got it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to touch on a couple a little bit. So how often do you pole at the moment?
Oh, usually like three days a week is what I try to do. And I'll take, I feel like I go in like season. So right now I'm in a, like, I just want to spend time on the apparatus. I don't really have any like specific goals that I'm actively trying to work on right now. So I've been taking like 2 classes a day on like Monday and Tuesday, and then I will go in for like an open studio, like my own training time, and work on I'm trying to figure out how to do Gennaro, and it like some days it goes really well, other days I just like want to face plant into the ground. So I'll spend like 1 day a week working on the skills. Either like a Gennaro is one that I'm like trying to be able to achieve, and I'm actually going in today, and like shoulder mount on spin has been like the bane of my existence. I get like really scared as soon as my head goes down. So that's my plan for today, is to like quit being a baby about
trying to overcome that. I find with Gennaro, it's really difficult to get that parcel shelf right. You know, like when you create that flat positioning to get it on, you have to get that so bang on and your body positioning so right and lined. Otherwise you've got nothing to go down on. It can be challenging because you can't, well, you can sort of see it, but you can't see it. Unless you've got a mirror. So I understand why that positioning is quite tough, and it's a lot on the back too.
And that's it. Where mine is that like rotation up. I get like halfway, like the shelf, my shelf is solid, where I'm like, I got this, but it's I can get like halfway rolled, and then my back starts to cramp. And so I've been doing a lot of stuff off the pole to be like, okay, do you have the strength to like be like laterally flexed and then rotate? And
so
what have I been doing?
Oh, what have you been working on?
The main drill that I do is I lay like face down on the ground, and then I like turn my body into a C, and like keeping that C, can I roll up? And like the days where I can do it on the floor, I can do it on the pole. And then the days that I like can't get that roll to happen, it's like kind of my like screening thing, where I'm like, if I can roll on the floor, then I'm like, let's go. But if I'm like stuck on the floor, I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do this on the pole.
Have you noticed, like, have you like clicked on days where like, is there any have you linked days together where you're like, this is why I don't think I can do this on this particular day? Like, is it as a result of like training the day before, like anything in particular that you think, or just potluck?
A little bit of, so I usually go in like later in the week for my open studio day, and it really depends upon like what I've done. Like, have I been lifting like heavier? Have I been doing more like posterior chain stuff where my like the back part of my back is like already just like fried? Or have I spent like this week, I know it's not going to be a good day today because I have spent like 7 hours a day on my computer, like just sitting talking to people on Zoom. So like the stuff that and like my stress level throughout the week too. Like if I have a lot of stuff going on, like my nervous system's like already pretty fried by the time I have time to like relax and train. So being able to like kind of evaluate that before you go in to be like, what have you done during the week? How are we? And yeah. And like, will I try once to be like, maybe today will just be an anomaly day. And then sometimes it goes like moderately well, but most of the time when I go in being like, you're already tired, like you put your body through a lot already this week, like probably not going to be the day to do really crazy things. And that's okay.
That mental check-in, by the way, is so important with yourself and being honest with yourself. Also, your menstrual cycle, I could talk about this quite a bit too, but your menstrual cycle very, very, very heavily dictates how you're feeling too, and how you may be performing. But to be able to check in and say, like, how am I actually feeling? Did I sleep well last night? Have I drunk enough water today? Have I eaten enough food? Like, where's my mental headspace at? Like, am I in a good space to be able to socialize with people today? Yeah, I know that sounds really over the top saying like socialize with people, but you know, we've all been in a class or an environment with someone where you can just tell something's off, something's not right about them that particular day. You can just sense it with the energy and how their body language is, and 9 times out of 10 it's because they've had a really bad day. You know, and it's you know, sometimes you just need to say like, okay, I need to take some me time, I need to go rest. You know, like go do some stuff that's like, for me, I mean, pole might be that for you anyway, because 9 times out of 10 you come out at the end of it and you're like a different person.
Yeah,
because you feel so good. But yeah, that meant that mental awareness too is so important, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's one where it's like everyone that I work with, like that's their first like exercise on the app that I use for it is like answer, I think it's like 10 questions, and exactly what you said, like how well did you sleep, how long did you sleep, how much water have you drank today, how much food have you eaten today, really like where are you? And then like in like bold letters where it's like if all of these are like not well, like you're not doing good, like you need to like reevaluate whether you're going to do this training session today, because there's nothing wrong with being like, today it's not the day and tomorrow is like a better, yeah, it's a new day, and like, you know, you can do better at the things that you're not doing good at today. But a lot of times I feel like people rightfully so will be like, no, today is the day that I'm supposed to do whatever, like it's on my calendar, this is what I'm supposed to do. And like you said, some days it can go really well where you're able to like kind of snap out of your funk that you're in, and then other days you're like distracted, and that's when you like silly things can happen and you like end up getting hurt inadvertently. So I guess just being aware that like that's kind of the risk that you're taking of like, if you're not firing on all systems, like is it a not firing on all systems and you just need to move and you'll feel better, or like is moving going to make it like worse? Yeah.
I totally agree. And I'm the same with my clients. I get them to monitor it every day, so that when we check in at the end of the week, we can be like, right, like, and it's really, really obvious that, you know, they write down on one day where they only get like 5 hours sleep, the next day they're feeling tired and grumpy, and you know, their mood's a bit shit, and you're like, well, that's why, or their water intake was quite low, and then how everything dominoes, and then they become more self-aware too. But yeah, it's really, really important,
which I think circles back to like treating yourself like an athlete, right? Because these are all things that like higher performing athletic people do, is like they control as many things that they can control, right? They're going to like make sure that their nutrition's on point. They're going to make sure that they're drinking enough water. They're going to make sure that they have like the best environment to be able to sleep, because they realize how important sleep is for their ability to perform. And if you can look at, even if you're not a high level athlete, you're just a person that's trying to do good at pole, it will, and just like a person trying to like function better through life, right? Like all of these things play like a really big part. And I don't feel like the society that we've created has like prioritized like really taking care of yourself. It's you know, you can sleep when you're dead, no pain, no gain, like go.
Have you ever read the book by Matthew Walker?
Why We Sleep?
Yes.
Yeah.
So good, right?
It is a really good book, yeah.
When you read it, when you start to actually visualize what he's saying and stuff like this, it is shocking. when you actually understand the different stages of sleep that you go in and out of, and how your recovery is impacted, and even like I've spoken about this before on a pod, but when you drink alcohol or you take drugs, the way in which your REM sleep is impacted, and then how your brain tries to like recoup it all, it is fascinating. And like you say, like people say like, oh, and I've said it when I was younger, like, oh my god, yeah, you can sleep when you're dead. Who needs sleep? We all bloody need sleep, because if you don't, you are literally like, your lifespan is decreasing.
Yep. So you're taking years off your life by not sleeping. And I feel like, well, maybe people don't realize this, but I feel like they realize it like too late, where they're like, oh, I should have been taking better care of myself, like younger, and like fully want to recognize that everyone's circumstances are different. And so sometimes like you just have to do what you have to do to survive. But if you're in a situation where like this can be a higher priority for you, like prioritize it, because it pays off in a wide variety of different ways.
Definitely. So one thing I do want to finish on, actually, how have you I mean, you've continued putting out your content that you've done, which is fantastic. We touched on it a little bit. So you mentioned about I mentioned to you before we start recording about some of the sort of backlash that you've had on some of the posts. Like, how are you feeling about that? Or like, how are you when that happens? Like, because even we're all human, and like you say, you'll get the information you're giving out, like it's not opinion. A lot of the time it's factual, but anyway, it's obviously the way it's taken and stuff like that. But even sometimes when I get negative comments on my stuff, I just delete it. I do delete it. It's just the best way. But like, how are you when that sort of like, how do you take it?
So it's really interesting, because it's been happening like since I started posting, like since I decided like I want to have like an online portion of my business. And part of it has been, well, I'm not gonna lie, it's been really hard. I am kind of a people pleaser person. Like I want people to like me. I really am posting stuff with like the purest intentions of like just trying to help the industry and people. And like, right, like I went to school to like help people not be in pain. Like I'm not here trying to be like super controversial. And so when there are posts that people have really strong feelings about, the first thing I do is like reread to be like, was I too blunt? Like, was there like a better way that I like could have worded the caption that the words that I chose in my caption? And sometimes there are, and I will freely admit that that's something that I've spent like every post I try to do better, where I'm like, okay, my default is to be very direct and very blunt, but people don't always resonate with that. So can I take the time to explain like more of like, how did I get to this conclusion? Where am I pulling from? Like, where are these things coming from? And I feel like I've been doing better lately, but then every once in a while I'll be like, people didn't like the way that I said that. But I go to therapy like every other week, and we talk about stuff, and like it's heavy. I cry a lot when people have really strong feelings, especially, well, I guess I go back and forth. Like if they have really strong feelings because they don't agree on it, fine. Like it's science. Like if you don't want to believe science, then like I can't help you. But when it turns into more of like coming at me as a person, those are the comments that are like really, really hard. So
yeah.
And it happens more frequently than I think people realize, because I do delete the comments that are coming at me, because I'm like, people don't need to read that. Like, you don't have to like me, that's fine, but you don't have to like project it out to everyone. And same, like people will DM me not nice things like on a fairly regular basis.
Stop
it. Yeah. Like so it's been one where like I just have to, like, I read it and then I'm like, okay, like fine, and then blocked. Like delete the comment, block. Like I don't have the energy capacity to deal with people like not valuing what I put out into the world, or like not seeing me like as a human, because I am a human. I'm a real person that is like posting this stuff. So
oh my god, yeah. Well, I just want to say, coming at it from like a personal trainer, a pole instructor, really, I've been in the fitness industry for a long time. I love the content you put out, and I think it's super valuable. And I think you just have to stay true to yourself and the message that you're delivering and the value that you're trying to providing, and keep that at the forefront of your mind, because the people who value your content will continue to appreciate it and like it and share it. And your following's growing. I've seen that when I first found you and where you are now. Your following's growing. You're getting more exposure. People are appreciating what you're putting out. You're always going to get people that don't like it, and you're doing the right thing. You just have to delete it and ignore it. But you just have, like you say, you just have to stay true to you. You know what you're saying. You know what you're saying is correct, and it is. And like I say, I read every post that you've read. I'm like, yes, yes, this is true. I love this.
And that's been honestly so there was actually not that long ago where I took a few days off, and I like seriously contemplated just like deleting my entire Instagram page, because I was like, I cannot take the just like constant, well, it was like pretty constant for a while, like onslaught of people like disagreeing with me and like turning it into like more of like a personal attack. I had quite a few people be like, you don't know anything, you're just a chiropractor. And I'm like, what is your degree in? Like, what are we talking about? So yeah, I took a few days off of posting and like sat with it, and reached out to some other like providers that are in the same space. And what was recommended to me was to like start screenshotting all of the comments and the messages of people saying like, I appreciate your posts, I have learned so much, like you're incredibly valuable. So now I have a folder, my like little affirmations folder, where like when people have their opinions about me or the content that I create, I just go and read them, and I'm like, you're doing good, like things are okay. And there's always going to be people that don't like me as a person, or like the way that I choose to share my message, and like that's fine. There's a bunch of people in the world
that do.
And like, if you don't like me, which is like, maybe you saw that story where I was like, if you don't like the way that I'm communicating, like it's so easy to unfollow. Like you don't have to like outwardly express your hatred to me because you don't like me. Just unfollow me and like move on with your day.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I just think what you're putting out is fab. So keep going, honey.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Love it. I absolutely love it. And also you got to remember that like you are educated. You did put in the time. I know it's like really hard and it's really easy for me to say this, but facts on facts.
Yeah.
Always.
And that's where I like there's been like a really big like kind of self-growth, and probably in the past like month or so, where I feel like I need to do a better job of explaining like my educational background and like where this stuff is coming from, so that it doesn't seem like I'm just a random person on internet like popping off with their opinions, which there are lots of people on Instagram that's their entire page, where letting people know more frequently to be like, hey, this is like literally what I have dedicated my life to doing. So
yeah, and maybe it's about just people getting to know you as a person, and like you putting out more content like that, and like sharing your background, although it's there already. But I don't know, you'll figure it out. You just have to play around with loads of different ideas, and some things you put up will smash, and some things will really just dive and don't do that well. Sometimes I've put out the exact same piece of content but in a different format, and it's done incredibly well, but in one format it hasn't, the other format it has, and it's like this, I'm giving you exactly the same information. So it's
that super I find that super interesting. Yeah, because I've done the same, where I'm like, I've had information like rile people up before, and I'll like change like the order of the words, like literally just like flip it, and then people are like, oh my god, I love this, and I'm like, well, you like bit my head off the last time I posted it in reverse. So yeah, people are interesting.
This is it. I've put up like a kettlebell workout before, and like my kettlebell workouts didn't really do that well in general, and then I put up a post about how these particular kettlebell moves can help you improve your push, and it's exactly the same video, but I've just like taken the individual moves, just given a little bit of like how you do it or what it targets, and then within an hour it gets like, so normally like a kettlebell workout might get like, I don't know, let's say like 100 saves. Within an hour of this post going up, like I have like 250 plus saves, and you're like, what the fuck? Like I feel like I give this to you in a different format, and like it just clicks, and it's just finding that, and like you know, I know it must be really, really hard, but like you are doing a great job. And like, I feel like people that get it and appreciate it. So, and that's what you got to focus on, because
definitely.
And at the end of the day, like I've really tried to move away from Instagram. Isn't the be or end all. The Instagram is where you put your information, but like your clients and like who you're working with, they're the people that matter, and they're the people that keep coming back to you. So that's all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, and that exactly, you nailed it on the head, where I was like, people on Instagram can get upset, and like, I'm not trying to invalidate people's feelings, like feel your feelings if you're having big feelings about things, but the people that work with me like crush their goals like on a regular and consistent basis. So like you can have strong feelings about any of it, but like, you know, we're over here getting out of pain and improving our performance like on a regular basis. So come join the fam. Yeah,
this is it. And like that's all you've got to focus on. Like, and that's like, I tried to shift my mindset a little bit and was like, why am I so focused on Instagram and likes and trying to please everyone, when that's not really what it's about. It's about, you know, providing value to people that need it and want it, and those people that want to work with you will. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah,
but you're crushing it.
Thank you. Yeah. And I have to remind myself, like, and people all the time, where I'm like, if you don't like the free content that I'm putting out on a free app, then yeah, like maybe I'm not the problem. So
this is it. And also, like, you forget like the whole thing with social media is providing value, and you provide so much value, and I give out so much information for free, like so many tips, tricks, tutorials, you know, like I can't give you any more. Like, I'm giving you so much, like, just take it and run with it. But well, Emily, this has been absolutely amazing. I feel like I'm literally about to go to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class. That's another thing that I've just added into my cross training, and it's super transferable, by the way, super transferable to pole. So I need to dash, but this has been absolutely, I feel like I could talk to you more about this and deep dive on way more subjects.
Yeah, same.
way more subjects.
I just looked at the time and I was like, oh, it's already been over an hour. What? So yeah,
I know. Definitely. I'd love to do a part 2.
Let's do it.
If you were ever up for, maybe we could deep dive on some more stuff.
That would be great.
We share a lot of values, so this has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, considering it's what now, 10 o'clock?
Yep, 10 o'clock. I'm actually going to go for a run, so it's great.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.